Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. For today, what I have on the channel is actually an interview with the so-called former fat, which is the mythical creature of the fat acceptance movement. And I wanted to talk to him about it because they do not believe that people can ever lose weight and keep it off. And yeah, so do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Of course. My name is Eric, and I am a former fat. So I never really thought about any of this until I got into high school. Because growing up, like, who really does think about that? It's just
What? Being
like,
fat?
yeah, like you're a kid, like, it just doesn't matter. So, but I am indeed a former fat. Actually, at my heaviest, I used to weigh 240. So
Okay.
now I weigh 190. Might not look like it, but I do. So I weigh 190. And it all started to go south for me when I was in fourth grade because I just realized how good food was.
Love
And
that. So what do
yeah,
you do? Do you have any social medias or anything?
I totally do have social media. So I'm not active on the YouTube realm, you guys. So you won't find me on there, but I still use it. But I am on the Instagram as Eric. Wreck as in wreck. Like he's a wreck. He's a mess. That's me. And Eric94, if you guys are curious, I do write lyrics on there and sometimes just post like gym progression shots because that's something I really care about, health and fitness, because I don't believe in health at every size. So
Right, which is why it's really difficult for us to be friends.
people have
Because
asked and wondered.
I am really a very much an advocate for, no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, no, we know each other because we've been friends for a long time, too long. I'm just kidding.
I know.
It's been too many years.
8 years. 8 years.
Ooh, time flies.
Young, fun, and 21 is when I met you. Remember?
Yes, I remember. He was like, well, I'm at the peak age anyways, so it's just amazing. And I was like,
Anyway. Anyway. Moving on.
I'm just kidding. No, we love. I thought at the time I was trying to be sugar-free, but I had a limerita at that time that I met him. So that's great. So I was really on point, which has corn syrup in it. So I was really smart one back then too.
It's okay. We all make mistakes, as have I. So don't worry about it. It happens.
Anyway. So anyways, we've known each other forever. Well, not forever, but a long time. 20s, getting towards the 30s for you.
I'm at the end of my era. So 2 weeks ago, I turned 29. So
in gay years, that's the first death. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, we're gonna move on. I'm just kidding.
I want to do that.
No, I'm just kidding. So what is your story? So as you said, you were relatively chunkalicious. I did see some pics. There will be some thumbnail pics going on.
Oof.
So what was that like? And what do you remember about it? And how long ago was it? That's what we need to talk about. Because it's not so much that they say fat acceptance or the fat acceptance people, they don't necessarily say you can't lose weight. They say you cannot keep it off. They say 97% of diets fail and people always put the weight back on and then more.
Okay.
So how long have you kept the weight off, first of all?
Well, my high school years was like when I started actually noticing that, like, oh my gosh, I'm fat, and I was like, ooh, I don't like this. So I started, like noticing that, and I was like, oh no. And I started getting into all these like weird diets or unhealthy diets. And I was just like, okay, like this is not it. I want to do something about it because I don't like it. I'm not happy. It was like on my mind a lot, And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, ew, like my gut. So, it's just, it wasn't for me. Like I never looked at other people and was like, ew. I just looked at myself and was like, ew. Like it was very just self problematic. Like it wasn't like others around me. Like,
okay,
but
Taylor.
Anyways, gotta keep it poised. Anyways, no, but as I was telling you, it was I was always like a very active child, running around, just being a child, I guess. And it wasn't until fourth grade when I started eating and eating, and so when I started ballooning up because I have an older brother who is 6 years older than me. So he had access to a car and access to money before I did. And so I would get allowances and we would go together to like McDonald's. I'd be like, oh, if you drive, I'll use my allowance and you can like, I'll buy you something. That was the trade-off.
Oh gosh.
And it was to the point where like we would eat our meal in secret in his car. And then we'd still have to eat dinner with my mom because we had to pretend we didn't eat junk food because she would get mad at us. She'd be like, oh my God, you guys are getting fat or you're fat. And I was just like, no, like we didn't eat, like we're eating your dinner. And we'd be like, oh, because we're so full. But we had to fake it, fake it till you make it.
Right.
So
for you, what was the biggest motivating factor of eating?
See, trying to think back, like since it started like at a young age when I was in 4th grade, it's like, I want to say it wasn't emotional. I think it was just like gluttony because I loved food. Like, I mean, who doesn't like the taste of like McDonald's or like, ice cream and stuff like that? And it just got to the point where I was like, oh my God, like this is so good. And maybe I got like addicted to it to a certain degree, with everything that's in junk food, but it didn't come from an emotional place. It just came from eating. And honestly, that's like the first and only time that like side story that my mom ever like put hands on me because she had bought a dessert thing, like the Costco variety packs of ice creams. And I ate like half of it in one night. And she told me from the get-go, she was like, oh, you can have like you can have like a limited amount, just make it last the week. I didn't listen because I loved food. So I ate like half of it. And then she got home and she was like, who ate all this ice cream? And I blamed my older brother. I was like, he did it. And then she called him and she was like, why did you eat everything, blah, blah. And he's like, I haven't been home. Like, I'm at work. I've been at work since like after school. And then she like directed her gaze at me and was like, you liar. And she didn't like beat me viciously or anything, but she just gave me like a big whack. And like I cried, but it wasn't like because it hurt. It was like an emotional cry because I'm the youngest and I'm like, you hit baby. And so I cried and that was like gave me my freaking eating problems. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm not blaming my mom. Love her. But no, it wasn't emotional to answer your question. Okay. It was just eating, and it wasn't till like high school, I guess, maybe when there was like a touch of a little emotion, but it wasn't like severe. I just think like it just always lined up with my lifestyle, as weird as that sounds, because in high school, my friends from elementary, they became stoners. And so they would, get high. And I didn't smoke when I was in high school with them, but I was fat. So they would get high and they'd be like, dude, we got the munchies, let's eat. And I'd be like, well, I'm just fat, so I'm always ready to eat. Like, let's go. So the relationship worked out beautifully, and I just kept on eating and eating. And I guess you could say my tolerance kept building when it came to eating. So I would just keep going and going. And like, I do remember,
we love
the food addiction. It just keeps growing.
And, my God.
It was freaking terrible because like, breakfast, obviously I had to have something healthy because my mom, but come lunch at school, the little Dominoes that they would sell and the Chinese food. And then on the way home from school, I'd stop at Macca's and get that, that Big Mac.
Is that your Aussie shout out?
It is. It is my Aussie shout out. So to everybody.
So for you, you think it was mostly like addiction, so an addiction aspect. Do you think anything drove that, or was it just this physical sensation, just the sensation of it?
I think if I'm being honest, it was just the physical sensation because, like I said, started at 4th grade. I was like, I was never like I didn't have like a rough childhood or like an unhappy home life. So I'm like, it wasn't emotional eating. It was just 4th grade and something switched. And I was like, food is really good. And I just kind of kept spiraling and spiraling. And it wasn't, like I said, until high school where I was like, oh, I don't like this. Like, because I guess in high school things change and people start looking at you differently and they're like, oh, you're fat. And I was like, I am. I was like, I am? Like, oh my God, I'm fat. So that's when I started doing things to like that's when I guess you could say that I started doing the diets that they talk about where like, oh, you do the diets and you can't keep the weight off because I remember just stopping eating junk food, and I would go to the high school track where I went to school, and I would just run. Like I would run like a mile and then build up to 2 miles and just do that like every other day. And I did shed weight, and my friends were like, "Oh my God, you look so good now that you lost weight." And I was like, "Oh, now that I lost weight, I look good." Okay. But
Love.
yeah, right.
Love
We
that for you.
love that support system. But yeah, and then after that, it kind of like it would get a little more intense where I would like move more, work out more, but maybe stop eating, like I was still eating, I guess, healthy foods, but I cut my calories drastically. So I guess you could say I was under eating and overworking out. And then it just kind of became a thing that is not good, what we call here on the tube of the U and ED, I suppose.
So you did end up slipping into something.
Yes.
So what was the experience of that like? So was it, I'm guessing because it was high school and whatnot, it was, the impression that I'm getting is obviously when teens are teens, it's different. You view things differently. And
of course, yeah.
It wasn't as much of a health focus. It was more of like a status thing or a approval thing from other people.
It definitely was more like image based, like, of course we all say like, yeah, I'm doing it for my health, but I was like, yeah, right. Like I was in high school,
I mean, at like 15 or whatever you were, I think we all know how that works, really, But so you think, so was it kind of like you just wanted more, so then you slipped into that kind of, or that ED basically?
I wanted more, and like people were like nicer to me, and like I said, they're like, oh, you look good now. And I was like, and I put two and two together. Oh, you look good now because you lost weight and like you're not so big anymore. So I was just like, oh, I see. So I was like, okay, maybe the more I lose, the better I'll look, and like the nicer or better people treat me. They didn't treat me bad. They just didn't like, they weren't like, I guess, extra kind to me, or the fake kindness where they just notice you. I don't know how to quite put it into words. Like I wasn't bullied or anything. Just like, oh, Eric, like he's the sweet fat kid, which I was a sweet fat kid, and I do credit being fat to having a personality. So,
oh my God,
shout out to the fat.
I've never been super sweet. I'm more of a spicy person, but
that is true.
I don't think I've ever had that said about me before. I've never had somebody say, oh, Alex, he's such a sweet fat kid. It's always like, oh, like, they'll be like, he's smart or something else. Not he's sweet. I mean, maybe like when I was like really little, but
definitely not high school.
No way. They'd be like, oh, he's shy. He's a shy kid. He's shy.
Yeah.
He's shy, but he's smart, but never sweet, because I wasn't. But we love that. I don't know. So that's really interesting, because that's totally really, really different from my whole thing. So I try to explain a lot on this channel that there are different aspects to especially morbid obesity. So you never quite got there. So you were about 240 at like 6 feet, right? So he was never quite morbid obese, or certainly not super morbidly obese.
No,
you were definitely well, you were fat.
Well, yeah, according to the chart, I was obese, and I did have like fatty liver going on.
Yes, so you do get the fat. For me, he gets the fat cred, and the fat acceptance community be like, but it sounds to me like because you were not morbidly obese, it kind of followed that typical calorie reduction, even if it was in an unhealthy way, equals weight loss.
Yeah,
that doesn't always happen for people that are morbidly obese, because your hormones are different.
Right.
Your metabolism is often downregulated. It's more damaged.
Yeah.
And you can't quite just restrict without ending up binging. You tend to do that. It just tends to happen because of the way your hormones are. But it's different when you're younger as well. And it's different when you're also not morbid obese, because then it's more of that typical level.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that it is interesting to me to hear from you that for your experience, it was primarily addiction based. Because I do try to tell people that for a lot of people, it's not. I don't consider an ED an addiction. It's not the same. So like I got to morbid obesity or super morbid obesity because I had binge ED.
Yeah.
And that's totally different.
Yeah.
It's very emotionally based. It has nothing to do with just physical sensation. I mean, that's an aspect of it. There's a sort of physical comfort, but it's from an emotional turmoil. So it's very different.
Yeah.
Than just straight up addiction, because a lot of times when you're in BED, you don't even care about how the food tastes a lot of the time.
Right.
It doesn't even taste that great a lot of the time, especially because you tend to do things really crazy. Like, I remember this one time I ate this bowl of sugar-free syrup and bread, and I will never forget that I did that because it was so gross and not even good, but it didn't even matter because it wasn't about the sensation or like the taste. It wasn't about that. So, yeah. So basically, it's very different. So I think that that's something that people need to acknowledge too, is that a lot of people's experiences are vastly different in this area. Because I do have another friend that she has been on the channel, Lisa. She had PCOS and hypothyroidism at the same time. And that's how she got to morbid obesity. It had nothing to do with addiction, nothing to do with an eating an ED. It had nothing to do with that for her. So I think what I want you guys to know is we can all go to these in different, like we can get to being fat in vastly different ways. I think it's very easy for people to assume that everything is one way.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not. And I do think it is also different in morbid obesity, but you did have fatty liver. So that did probably make it harder. So it is interesting. But what was your experience, I guess, with the ED and after? What happened after that?
Oh gosh, that's a feeling I remember very well during the ED because obviously I was not eating a lot. I was eating like, I think I got to the point where some days it was just like a can of tuna and apple, and then just like water and coffee and like just drinking so much water to try to feel full and like caffeine to give me energy to get through the day. And like, I don't know who that sweet boy was that they were talking about when he was fat because he was gone. He was gone. I was obviously very moody and like very irritable. And like, I just, like I could still function and talk to people, but like it took a lot more in me to like not snap and like say nasty things because I was hungry and low energy and just like, I'm not dealing with this, And so, that kind of, I remember I was like, ooh, it's just the feeling of always wanting to eat, but obviously I didn't because I was like, okay, well, like, remember, it's like, you look good, people complimenting you and blah, blah, blah. So I was just like, okay, like, that's it. And so it just kind of kept going until I kind of just snapped and I couldn't do it anymore. And also it's just like, it's obviously not a realistic way to live,
Well, it could have been physical like, as well. Your body may have just been like, no, we're not gonna go out like this kind of thing. Sometimes it can take over your brain, I'm sure.
And that's the thing I try to explain to people because then they're like, oh, because then of course when I started eating, I gained so much weight. And that's why I shot up to 240.
Okay.
Because I just was eating and I could not stop. And I guess my body was just like, oh my gosh, food, like we were dying. And I just couldn't stop eating. I kept going. And a lot of people want to think or like to think that it's emotionally based, that eating where it came from. And I was like, it's really not emotional.
It's physical.
It was just my body wanting food and just kept going because it's like, oh, this is so comforting. Like it feels good. Even if it was junk food or food that wasn't good for me, it was just comforting to have energy and quite frankly, just be eating, So my body was like, oh, like, this is amazing. Like, ooh, like maybe we don't need to like melt cheese on spicy onions, but like, oh my God, food. So yeah. I just kept going and going.
To. I mean, from what I know, when it comes to the hormones and stuff, you likely did put yourself into a severely hypo state by not eating, like all, basically. Because obviously, where is the hormone going to come from? It has to come from some kind of building block. And if
Yeah.
you're not getting really any carbs or anything, or if you're not getting anything at
Yeah.
all, like how the heck is it supposed to do anything? So it typically
Right.
can cause that, especially with a long time. So when you talk about the negative mood or being really mean or a lot of these feelings that you had, that's that kind of feeling that a lot of really fat people feel, ironically.
Oh man.
But what you do have is when you get off of that or when you started eating again, you're craving these hyper palatable foods, and it's completely physical because you're so depleted.
It was, yeah.
And that's what people don't get too. So people would
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, well, Eric is gaining weight again, so that's an addiction. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not. That part isn't. That part is just a physical, you don't have anything in your body, and now your body is insisting that you eat hyper palatable foods that are extremely high in calories, carbs, and fat, and the whole thing to kind of restore it.
No, of course. Like I said, it was just physical. It's like, oh my God, I'm alive. I'm eating again. And
Yeah.
people would comment because they'd be like, oh, like kind of getting big again, or like you're gaining some weight. Like, are you
Love
okay?
that.
And it's because like I did look really like tired all the time, but you're in high school. So I think most people assumed like, oh, he's just really tired from studying or, going out and partying or whatever, like having fun, living his high school life. But also, it was easier for me to hide that I had an ED because like, since I am so like, wide framed and bigger,
Right.
wearing obviously looser clothes, baggy clothes or big hoodies, it's like because I have like bigger shoulders, they would like, my clothes would hang off. So they'd just be like, oh, like he looks fine, because they would help make the clothes, or I just looked bigger still, like big, So I couldn't see that I was like, oh my God, like, I'm losing weight and I'm like 140. I think that was the lightest I got, like 140, maybe high 130s, but I didn't go any lower than that because at that point I was just like, I can't do it anymore. Like, or my body was like, I can't do this anymore.
You probably didn't have anything else to run on.
So
that's probably why. Because I think if you would have gone further than that, then you would have started really breaking down like muscle and like organs and other things that are very vital.
Yeah.
So I think your brain probably like
the switch was like, oh,
yeah, and it's like, oh
it's like we are done. Like,
yeah,
you're done.
like,
You're done.
Nothing left here. And then it comes back. It's kind of like, which again, so you have experienced a lot of the hormonal waves actually that a lot of severely obese people have, which is interesting.
I did. And like I said, people were commenting like, oh, you're getting big again, or like, what's happening? And like, but at that point I didn't care because I think I was just like, it felt so good to eat and have energy that I just kept going. And people were not like mean or cruel to me in that sense, because it's like, well, they knew me when I was fat, so me getting fat again, or just like, oh, well, he's back.
It's a moment.
He's back. Like,
I probably in the sun. Yeah.
I became the statistic that they say, oh, you get off the diets and you gain weight again. That was me for a moment, because I did gain the weight back. But like I said, my friends and the popular kids and all that were like, oh, he was fat before, so whatever. But
wow.
Yeah, and I just remember it felt so good, and that lasted maybe almost 2 years.
Okay.
Of me just eating and eating and eating, and like it was a while. Yeah. 2 years is a while.
How long did the ED last in comparison?
That came about that kind of started mid to halfway end of like freshman year of high school, and it was around. I mean, it was like, it kept snowballing, obviously. Like, like I said, it started gradually and then just kind of kept going and going. And that finished up around like junior year towards the end. So from like,
this was about 2 years.
Yeah, pretty much. I guess I like lost 2 years and then did 2 years to replenish. I was like, oh my God. So
that's the thing too. Yeah. A lot of people don't get is what you take from your body, it will take back.
And eventually. It certainly did.
Yeah. So really, I think that's interesting. So after that 2 years, then what happened?
So after 2 years of eating and eating, it's just
did the appetite start going back down, or what? Did something shift, or what happened?
Well, it just got to the point again where I was just being gluttonous because
Okay.
like it got to a point where I was like, I
So
don't
it shifted.
I was like, I
Okay.
don't need all this food. It's just good, and I'm just enjoying it. And I'm having fun, like whatever, you know. But I don't
Right.
need it. I don't need it. But I had a moment when I went hiking with a group of friends that invited me, and it's beautiful. The Cove, we've been there.
Oh my gosh. We had
So
so many weird moments there.
yeah. It's beautiful, gorgeous, but as you know, there's like uphills and
Hills.
it's steep and whatnot. So I just remember like I've always liked being like active and going outside and being outdoors and just always being a busy little bee. So I had a moment when I was going up the hill and like mentally I wanted to keep going, but physically it was my body. My body was like, chill, you're fat, and I was out of breath. I was just like, and it was really annoying to me because I'm like, I want to keep going, but I physically cannot. And so that kind of like switched something in my brain too. I was like, all right, clearly what we're doing is not working for us because you can't do what you want. And at that point, that's when I was 240. So I think that's the only reason perhaps that I kind of stopped because I already had the effect of like, we don't realistically need all this food. We're just having fun now.
Because it
And
had that physical need for it had shifted.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so it became just sensation again.
It did. Yeah. It was just like,
Okay.
very
interesting.
Yeah. And then thanks to that moment, something switched. And that's when I kind of started getting back into dieting and trying to figure out things, when I was just like, okay, like, and of course I was a rookie. I was like making those dumb mistakes that everybody does. Like with my childhood friend, I got a gym membership at 24-hour fitness and we would go work out at the gym. And then he'd be like, ooh, like what an intense, an hour of cardio. Like, let's get a milkshake now at Jack in the Box. So we totally did that and like obviously defeated the workout and more. And then like I was out here thinking like, oh, Nature Valley granola is so healthy. So, eating that too, having fiber one bars. Yeah. So it was still like a learning curve,
Yeah.
But I wasn't like.
Were you still losing at that time or how was it?
I was losing, but like slowly, which maybe was the normal. I don't know, because I was 240. I was big, like maybe I could have stood to like lose a little more, a little faster, but I was still losing, just not as fast as I personally wanted to. So that's when I actually dove in and started looking into different ways of losing weight, or it's like I just started doing my research, using my brain. So. And that's when I was like, oh, Nature Valley and like Fiber One bars and like, Fiber One cereal, all this stuff is not healthy. I was like, oh my God. And I did also get a personal trainer. So that kind of helped set me up too. Like I was lucky enough, I guess, to like have like a foundation or like some help to get me going. So after that, when I got my personal trainer and started doing my own research, that's when I started taking it more seriously. And even aside from just going out to do physical activity, I noticed that like I could just do more, like that a normal person should be able to do, like go to work and go to school and still have energy to do something afterwards and not just be miserable, or just be like, oh, I'm tired after doing a normal human function. So
right.
Yeah, it's just, and like I miss that feeling, I guess, because when I was in the ED, I never had energy for anything. And then when I was eating too much and got to 240, I was like, I have the energy. I just get tired really fast now, So it's like, ooh, where was the balance?
Yeah,
so
it wasn't there. So what was your mindset going into? Sorry, we're on the floor, you guys.
Yeah.
And my legs fall asleep because I'm fat still, very much so. Ooh. But anyway, so what did you? I forgot what I asked. I literally just asked you. Oh, what was your mindset going into the second attempt at weight loss? And also, so really it became more about the health aspect, it sounds like, or just being able to do things, which is, again, something I have stated many times on this channel. Fat shaming doesn't work. Gotta insert the messages. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, it doesn't. The fat shaming aspect doesn't work. It's getting out, doing things, living your life, and then seeing how it's in your way.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is absolutely the most motivating factor for weight loss, a healthy motivation for weight loss. So what made you, or like what mindset did you go into your second major attempt? Like, what was your mindset going into that?
I think at that point, my mindset was legitimately and honestly not, the BS excuse for people like it's for my health, but really it's
Yeah.
vanity. Like at this point, it was for my health because even though I was only 19, I had already been on both ends, one not having enough energy, being moody and irritable all the time, like after school, wanting or needing to take a nap and stuff just to like keep going or function.
Hypo vibe.
Totally. And then again, I was on the other side where it's like, oh, I got the energy, like let's keep going. But like I said, my body was like, chill, have a seat.
Yeah.
So
you reached the other spectrum. You were going into the other hypo on the other end. We love that for you.
Oh, it's awful. To have been at both ends and only be 19, I'm like, hold on.
I know.
Like,
Well, at least you still were like coming to it younger, and before you were morbidly obese, because I will tell you, it is way worse. Like, it is so much worse when you get into morbid obesity. I think for me, I wasn't morbid until my senior year of high school. So up until then, I could still like, it was different, but I was so like in my ED at that time that it didn't matter, because it's like, but I know like in my senior year, I went from 300 to 350 pounds, which is insane.
Oh, wow.
That is a huge amount of weight because I was hella in my ED. That was because I had issues, which I've talked about on my channel. I had issues with my dad, and at that time he was trying to come back, and it was really stressful for me at that time, like over that year in general. And then I just hated high school. I hated where I was at. I mean, I just hated everything. I was one of those. I was the typical, like, people would always tell me as a teenager, you don't like anything. You don't like anybody. And I guess I liked like very few things. And I was one of those because I was kind of like, I'm into Paramore and all the other music is trash. I was one of those. Again, I was never the sweet fat, for sure.
No.
More of the, no, I don't, kind of closed off to things. Vibe. I had to open up more in my 20s. But anyways, it was not a the point is, it was so much worse after I got to 350. Like, the hormones were worse, the depression was worse, the hypo got drastically worse. And it was so much more difficult to control what I was eating, because then I did start trying to lose at that time because it was so bad, and I started to fear my own death, basically, because I was having these crazy headaches, and at like 21, I was really scared of my health. And then I had a lot of health markers that were getting worse, and things just really took a turn. They were trying to put me on medications at like 18, 19, like it just totally shifts. So it is really good that you didn't go there. And that's why I tell you guys, if you're on your way, stop it, turn it around. It's so much easier to course correct when you're not in that morbid obesity. It is so much harder once you're in it. It's like being in a pit. Once you're in it, you're like in a pit. And you have to like find a way out. It's very difficult. And also like doctors and stuff, they kind of give up on you as well. And then people in general give up on you. So you don't really get fat shamed as much when you are really, really big as you do when you're less big, which I talked about that in my last video, where it's like that's idea of salvageability. When you reach that morbid obese state, you are no longer salvageable. So people give up. And for some, it can be relief, but it's also like, it can be kind of, I don't know how else to say it, but it's kind of like a death sentence. It's really rough. So it's good that you never got there. Which for you were out. Eric is very extroverted. So he's extremely extroverted.
Out and about all the time.
Yeah, he never stays home, ever. So he was super extroverted, even as a young person.
Absolutely.
And so going out and living his life motivated him at a younger age, whereas I was very introverted. And I became even more introverted. Like, I actually became even more introverted going into my 20s because of certain hormonal factors.
Yeah.
But I also I had no motivation to try to lose weight when I was a teen because I loved staying home. I loved just not doing anything. I loved not going out. It was the best.
Yeah.
So it definitely didn't help. I didn't have that at a younger age. So I was already kind of.
And that's like a difference right there, because again, when I was younger and I lost the weight, people were like, oh, like, look at you looking better and awesome. Like, we should go out more, come do more things with us. And I was like, oh yeah, let me keep losing weight. Like,
whereas
I like going out.
Whereas when I was in high school, I used to fear losing weight because they'd be like, oh my gosh, people are going to ask me to go out and do things. And I don't want them to. I want them to leave me alone.
The difference of.
Yes. Yeah. So again, sometimes your personality, it can reinforce things or mitigate things depending. But for me, I already had the ED. I was already there.
Yeah.
And it kept me there. My personality kept me there. Where I was like, I don't want to go out. I don't want to do anything, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I started going out later. So I was going out around 19, 20, 21. That's when I was going out. And that's when I started trying to lose weight. So telling you guys, fat shaming does not work. It doesn't work. Going out works. It really does. So anyways,
it does.
So what did you end up, I guess, kind of doing? You just did general calorie reduction, or what was really your step? Just exercising and eating less, basically, or?
Well, basically the calorie reduction, but without calorie counting, because I've never done that. But it's basically what I did, because I just started moving more, and by moving more, I mean the gym. Because like I said, I got the personal trainer, and then I started doing my research, and I was like, that's not healthy. That's not healthy. That's not healthy. And I would believe really dumb things too. I was like, oh, if I drink a hot chocolate or a latte, that's not as bad as eating a donut.
Well, you're not wrong.
So
you wasn't wrong. As far as hypo, it is better. So you were right, because one doesn't have those oils in it and one does.
Ooh.
So you hop, skipped, and jumped into certain things.
Look at me, not even knowing it. Yeah, because I was like, let me just drink the bad things rather than eat them, because I feel like that's better. So
you stumbled into it. That's true. That's
okay,
verified. Verified SMO and Mo, which is super morbidly obese and morbidly obese. It is better to have that. And sometimes, honestly, that's the steps you have to take. And people are so angry with me when I say that. And it's like, when somebody's, okay, I don't want to be mean, but when somebody's really huge, okay, we'll just say that.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a time when they're going to be eating a salad every day and that's it. Realistically, the physical drives and everything else, you're going to be eating a lot. So it's I try to tell people that are hugely huge and eating like a hog, basically, there's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
To shift what you're eating. Don't have donuts, just have candy. And for a lot of people, that is an attainable goal. And a lot of thin people will say, don't have donuts or candy or anything and just eat a ketogenic diet and just not ever eat anything.
Just dive in cold turkey.
Basically. Yeah, or my mom's doctor told her, don't eat any sugar, fat, and only have protein, but not too much. And it's so just don't eat anything. And when a fat person hears that, they're like that's what it is mentally. It's
and see, you bringing up the doctor thing, that's interesting to me, because I, at my heaviest 240, I mean, obviously I was going to a doctor because, fatty liver, that's how I knew. But when it came for time for me to want to lose weight on my own for actual health reasons, I didn't go about it in a doctor way. I just kind of went my own path, which is why I said, got the personal trainer and just started eating less
activity.
Junk. Yeah.
It's huge. And I again, people like to act like I never advocate for anything health related. And well, not everybody. I'm being negative. I'm in a deficit. I told y'all. I kind of go a little negative when I'm in it.
He's moody right now.
Yeah, I was moony and moody the past few days. My moon face was so bad after starting my deficit, because it's a hit. It's a hit.
You still look smaller than me.
No, I don't. It's still it very much when you start counting calories or when you start reducing and get into a deficit, it is a hit to the thyroid. But how it works is, the scale.
Yeah.
So I do all this for my thyroid, and then I do that deficit. That takes a little bit away, but there's still an even scale. So I can still do it, which is how you do it. My appetite's great.
Yeah.
He's been a witness to my appetite. I have not been hungry. I may be moody, moony. I may have to go to the bathroom more. I may feel like I'm bloated and be like, I don't know. I really like the way my body looks 1 second, and then I'm so disgusting the next second. Like, it's really weird. It does affect you mentally. And so if you guys are big and you are in a deficit, don't understand it is a part of it. Like, it does affect your hormones and it does affect how you think of it. So I may be a little negativo when I'm talking about my audience, but no, most of you guys are great and positive and amazing. But there are those that do get upset and act like I don't advocate for anything traditional. And that's not true.
Yeah.
I do heavily push for activity, as long as you're not gasping for breath constantly or doing like extreme cardio for 10 hours a day. That would not help really anybody. Yeah, although a thin person could do it.
Like a certain show.
Yes, pretty much. Although if a person is thin, they can do it as long as they eat more and sleep. Like, you have to eat enough to counteract it and sleep enough, and a thin person will be fine. Somebody who's mega hypo, moody, and big as hell, running for 10 hours is a horrible thing to do. It's horrible. So don't. Just take it easier. I walked, though. I walked for like 5 hours today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we walked
so
a lot.
You need to be active, but don't be out of breath. But being active, moving your muscles, weightlifting, walking, things where you're breathing good and not tripping or anything, that's your best bet. So it sounds like you did that too. You leaned heavily on activity.
I did, and let's keep it 100. Like, I might have dove a little too far into that too in the beginning, because I got excited about losing weight again.
Oh gosh.
But this one was short-lived. It wasn't like a long, or it didn't have like a super negative impact on me, because I don't know how deep I ever got into like hypo, because I don't remember.
You were also smaller. It's different because you're kind of in like it's like being on another planet.
Yeah.
So you still were like back on Earth, You weren't out in, we'll call it the moon because of the moon phase. You weren't out on the moon. You were still on Earth.
I wasn't being moony on the moon.
Yeah. Those of us that are really big were on the moon. So it's a different experience for sure. But yeah, so you could handle it a bit more. Plus you were young. Age is huge. It's a big factor too. When you're like in your early 20s, you can run a lot. Like, it's just different.
Yeah.
We all know that. You guys that are young, you'll know it. You'll be like, when you're older, when I turned 30, I fell and busted my knee, and it was just,
Happy 30.
It hit me like a train.
Yeah.
But anyways, no, it's good though. I mentally 30 is fire. But anyway, period. This is amazing. But physically, it was like, oh no, that was rough. So anyways, still have a scar on my knee. So now I know.
Lovely. Welcome to 30.
Like,
always that memory.
This is the scar that I got right when I turned 30.
This is 30.
Pretty much.
Love that.
But anyways, so you kind of did go too hard. So how did you regulate that? Did you just get too tired and you're like, okay, this is too much? Or like, how did you not slip into another ED that time?
I think because, like, as we've said, I really valued going out and having a life and just being super social. So like, it lasted maybe a few months. So again, it could have been worse. And I mean, it still wasn't ideal, Right. But I was going to the gym, and there would be sessions where I would go for like 5 hours. So because and I would always like pick certain days, I'd be like, oh, like Friday, like this class starts at 12 and there's one that goes, or not that it went all the way to 4, but like this class starts at 12 and there's one at 1, there's one at 2, there's one at 3, and so I'm like, that's 4 hours, and then the last hour I can just do something on the elliptical or something, just anything, whatever, really. And it just became that feeling again where it was like, I'm losing weight, like I love this, and just looking better and feeling better. But then like, because I don't remember ever feeling really like terrible during those workouts, but it was just a lot of time wasted because
Okay.
I'm just like, oh man, like 5 hours. And it got to the point where I had a friend too who diagnosed me. So she was just like, oh my gosh, like you're doing that for too long. You have this. So But and she was just like, oh my gosh.
So
Like,
somebody kind of did reach out in a sense, or was
someone called me
concerned.
out of it, and I was like, "You crazy?" But I was like, "This is how you lose weight." So
Oh my God.
this is normal. Like, I'm on BL, but and obviously, like I said, that wasn't realistic either because it's like, I would be tired. Obviously, I'm human. So after the 5-hour workout session, I was just like, I need to chill. Like I can't go out or do anything. I was like, I'm gonna stay home and play WoW. But because that was something chill, like wasn't going out. But I kind of started regulating that because I was like, this isn't sustainable. This isn't real. Like you can't work out 5 hours like 3 times a week. That's 15 hours in the gym. Like that's a lot. And I would still go other days for regular times too. It's not like I was just doing those 3 5-hour workouts,
Oh, okay. So they were just supposed to be, your strategy was just like kind of like a calorie, dropping tons of calories at that moment kind of thing. And then would you just eat a lot, or?
I mean, I definitely did have an appetite because it was unrealistic to not want to eat, But
so that's probably why you were mostly okay, because you were eating a lot more, which the body can handle a lot if you just are reasonable.
Yeah. And
which it sounds like you were more reasonable. How much weight were you losing when you did that?
Oh, well, like I said, at first it was slow. It was 240, and then I got, I think, to like maybe 230 for a couple of months. And I was like, this is great. Like, I can see that I'm losing weight, but I want to do it faster. So then when I started doing those 5-hour sessions, it lasted a few months. I think I went from like 230 because I lost 10 pounds. I think I went from 230 to like 208, if I remember correctly. So I did lose weight, but I was just like, okay, like this is kind of insane still, because I started just thinking about it all the time I wasted and like working out so hard. I'm like, this isn't the life I want. This isn't something I want to do. And I was like, I can still lose this weight in a reasonable way, without having to do 5-hour workout sessions. Like lining up all the classes. Oh my God, body pump. Let's do step now. Let's do the Nike Running Club. Like it's,
So you heavily focused on activity, and then you started looking at diet.
Activity first, yeah, because I was not that active. Like, I mean, I moved, like I went places and did things, but like I wasn't like working out, So that's what I was like, okay, let's change that up. Because to me, I'm like, for whatever reason, diet was easier for me to be flexible with, I guess, because I had the willpower, discipline, or insanity, or whatever you want to call it, to completely stop myself from, eating again apple and can of tuna.
Yeah.
So I had that discipline already. Where like, if I really want it, I'm gonna do it. It was the physical activity that I had to get more used to because I was like, oh, I'm not used to being on the Stairmaster. Like, this is gross. Like, ew,
Yeah, that is a lot.
So
that is a lot, but you could probably handle. I can't handle that right now. I can't handle the Stairmaster. I'd like die.
But I got a breath too.
Yeah, I mean, that one's brutal. It's really tough. But I mean, you obviously, I don't think you were doing harm to yourself with that, really. Especially if you were eating enough, because people always were active forever. That's a part of what our bodies are meant to do, is to be active. So as long as you're eating enough or giving enough back, then you were probably fine. But it is interesting because it is kind of reflecting, and I'm feeling better about what I'm doing, even though, the online haters, and I'm just kidding, that I'm focusing on because I'm in a deficit.
It's okay. It's okay.
Because I'm moony and moody.
I love that. Love that.
I should totally have a shirt that says that.
You should.
Anyways, so because of that, it's making me feel a little bit better because I feel the same way. Like I had to focus on activity. So for me, as somebody who was, mega hypo, extremely unhealthy, like literally fearing the end of my life for like a year, which is a really, really weird thing to go through, because it's not like just having a near death experience and then it's over. It's like, it's a season of your life, or it lasts for a long time.
Yeah.
So it really changed me, obviously. But when I what I had to do was cut out the seed oils and just really go hard in the other direction, because all the diets I had done and all my binging I had done, mostly through because of physical reasons, with the exception of 2018, I had a total horrific relapse into my BED that year, which was crazy. It was the mother of all, where I talk about, or I don't know if I've told you guys, but I used to eat 7,500 calories a day for 3 or 4 months. And I put on 40 pounds in like 4 months. And it was so severe. It has never been that bad ever in my life, but it got so bad at that time. But basically most of my 20s and most of the time it was because I was doing these diets, I was not getting all the nutrients required, and I was eating to replenish, especially when I did things like veganism and keto, which is why I'm very much against those things. But again, it's a lot. The thing that people don't get when I criticize those diets is that they're not, it's different for different people. Like a lot of times I go very hard against it for morbidly obese people, because it is so horrible for you at state. If you're thinner, it's, in my opinion, it's still like a punch, but you can kind of take a punch. It's just a different thing. And people do it for different reasons. You know, I know a lot of vegans, they're into it for the morality thing, which I honestly do not understand. And I think it can be a bit dangerous because it does sound ED-ish to me. And then people do keto for like, they want certain physical goals, or they even like spiritually, people will do things for spiritual reasons. I understand that. When I did keto, I had a lot of spiritual benefits. I just had a horrific physical breakdown, and it was awful for me. But I also did it a lot more hardcore than most, which it was bad. And you always should take breaks. Trust me. People don't believe that, but you need to.
Speaking from experience.
People go hard on fat people, and if you take a break, they're like, you shouldn't be. So it's really rough. But anyways, I'm done. I'm done with that. But the thing is, I had to cut that out first. And then I started focusing on activity. And I've done a lot more activity. And it is kind of, in my opinion, it is impressive that I can walk for 5 hours being over 350 pounds.
That is a lot. It's a big deal.
Especially as a very fat person. So it does give some credence to the diet I'm doing. I have the energy to actually do that. And I do it almost daily. It's not like I only did that once and that's it. But the point is, it makes me feel better because you did the same. So you started caring about the health. You started focusing on it because it was in your way. And then you leaned heavily into activity first, and then you focused on diet. And that, I do think, is it's something applicable to morbid obesity. It's something that morbidly obese people need to hear, because we are always told diet is the most important. It's the thing you should focus on first. And there is an aspect of that. But activity is really it's really huge to eventually getting to a deficit. It's very important. And it really helps with insulin resistance, appetite, all these different aspects. It's huge. It has so many benefits.
I totally
So
agree.
that's probably what allowed you to then start to really shift your diet and have more of a discipline, because you probably had better insulin resistant, better insulin processing, carb processing, and less of an appetite, and you're more healthy. And so what did you do first for diet?
Well, once I started getting down like the physical stuff, because again, that was like a challenge for me a little bit, because I was just like, oh man, like, like it's so different, like running around on the street and like having fun being, ratchet or whatever. Like, I can stay out till 5 a.m. drinking, no problem. But then all of a sudden I have to like be in the gym for like 30 to 40 minutes. I'm like, what? Oh no, like this is not the same.
That is weird.
So
it is weird how you think of it that way.
It is. And I was just like, why can't I do that? And why can't I do that? But anyways, so once I got down the physical part, and then the workouts they become second nature somewhat. I will I will never fully admit and be like, oh, I can't wait to go to the gym. There's always that time where it's like, I'm not in the mood today, but like, I don't have a reason not to go. Like, why am I not going? Like, I'm just going to go. And then I'm happy when I do go because I feel better afterwards, like it's just, I did something good for myself. It gives me a little bit more energy. And I'm like, yeah. And it like pushes me further into the direction of me wanting to do more and being able to do more because I feel like I have a lot of energy and can like tolerate more or handle more because of that. Because I'm just like, man, like, I guess it helps give me some endurance or stamina, or I'm just like, all right, or even some mental like clarity as well. And I'm just like, I can do more. And I like that feeling a lot. But once I got down to physical, that's when I started looking at diet because I'm like, all right, like we have to be careful with this. We can't go too far on one end and be like, like let's just not eat. And then I couldn't go down the other end where it's like, oh, well, because I'm working out and like for 1 hour, I can like shovel all this food in my mouth. I'm like, okay, no, it's not how it works. But then I just started like, it started simple. Obviously, like I'm not eating junk food. And junk food to me qualified as like any fast food outside of the home, like McDonald's and Taco Bell, as much as I loved it, and that kind of stuff, or just even like chips and candies. Because again, this is what I thought of as junk food. It's like I can't do this, and like to certain levels, I was like, some things I was like, is this too much? Is this too extra? But I was like, no, I'll count it. Like, because even Jamba Juice for me, I was like, I can't do that. So it was just certain things I had to start like laying low on and just being like, no, I don't need it. I want it. I don't need it. As lame as it sounds, So, and yeah, after that, I just started swapping certain things out, and I was looking into like certain diets. Like when we started talking, remember, I was like paleo, and like you had mentioned paleo too. So I had gone into paleo, and I was like, oh, like this is nice. Like I like it, and I felt good doing it. And like at that point, I had known things where it's like soy is bad. Like I didn't want to eat anything with soy and like canola oil, certain things. Yeah, I was just like,
it's on period. It's on point.
Like, ooh, I was like, no, I don't want any of that. Like,
whereas I was dumb, and I was like, oh, the oils aren't a big deal, which is so dumb.
And I just,
but I'm telling you, if I could have a conversation with 23-year-old me, I don't know if it would go very well. But anyways, we don't need to go there. And it's not even just diet related. It's everything at that time.
Life in general.
Yes. But yeah, I was the dumbass that did paleo and still had canola oil and said, I don't care. I'm going to just eat this convenient food at fucking, no, it's okay. At Whole Foods.
No, but like
Whole Foods putting canola foods
in
everything. And he was always like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'd be like, whatever, it doesn't matter.
And that would break my heart because I loved the hot bar at Whole Foods, but then I'd see like the carnitas and the chicken, it's like canola oil, and I was like, ugh! Yeah. Like, and I can't eat it.
Guess who didn't lose weight? Me. And guess who maintained not gaining? Him.
It was hard, but like it's a sacrifice that's necessary if you want to like achieve certain goals. And to me at that time, I was like, well, I'm chasing a certain goal, so like I can't do it. I won't let myself do it, And thankfully, like I said, I was able to have the willpower and discipline because I was like, okay, if I can handle like working out and doing this, I can now focus on the diet because this is like already taken care of. So it's like I didn't have too many things going on at once. Where I was like, I need to do this and I need to do this and I need to do this, and be overwhelmed, and then I don't know, maybe end up like overeating or just eating the wrong things or saying like F it all, So yeah, when I met you, I was kind of in paleo, and I wish I remember what like sent me down the rabbit hole into researching and like, canola oil bad and like soy bad, like soy boy, don't want to be that, So like, soy boy. And oh my god. I wish I remember what sent me down the rabbit hole, but obviously something did, and like, because me, I don't really do my research like that.
Well, I knew for me, I actually wasn't eating soy because it made me sick.
Oh.
So I was so hypo, apparently, that the estrogen in it made me sick. I'd feel horrible when I ate it. So I naturally avoided it. Yeah. But I didn't realize about the oils. I didn't realize it.
I mean, we all learn at our own pace, I guess. So it's not like, don't beat yourself up over it.
Well, it's too late now. I mean, you can't go back. It's fine. I'm alive. I survived. I'm alive, Sia. He always makes fun of me because
that's your song.
So we're into Enneagram, and I have the same Enneagram as Sia, and
Love that for you.
He's not like a super emotional type, and I am, and so
It's beautiful to see.
I relate to that song, I'm Alive. I was born in a thunderstorm. Okay, no.
I'm still breathing.
Yeah,
but,
basically I am.
Can't sing much
breathing.
more, you know, but
yeah.
I know the rules a little bit on here. But anyways, no, I'm happy that I was able to like learn things at a younger age. I mean, it definitely sucked. Like the teens were bad for the things I did and was like doing to myself and going through. But like, I do appreciate learning it at a younger age because, like you said, what if I had gotten bigger and bigger and just kept going?
Gotten into the pit.
And I didn't go into the pit. And you know, moving on to like grasping things, like when I talk to bigger people, and I mean like morbidly obese people. And I tell them, like, yeah, I used to weigh 240. And they're like, you don't look like you used to weigh 240. And I'm like, well,
that's kind of dumb.
Because I lost the weight. Like, you know, like, not like, you know, like, it's like scrunched up behind my back with the scrunchie. Like, oh, it's right here. Like, you know, the weight's right here, you guys. Like, no, I lost the weight. It's gone. So, and everybody thinks, like, I was never fat because they're just like, oh, like you're so crazy with the gym and like you really watch what you eat. And I'm just like, well, it's because I learned. It took like years of learning. I didn't like learn it overnight, you know. It took like years of struggling and doing really unhealthy things, you know, and just yeah. And then when I tell them 240 and like, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, congratulations, like that's very good for you. And I always try to motivate people. I'm like, well, you can do it too. Like, you know, I'm not going to say it's easy because it's not. But you can do it. Like, you just have to apply yourself and like, you know, just, you have to do your part. And then like some people, like, they'll get offended, I guess. And, you know, they'll start kind of retaliating and they'll be like, you were 240. You were not that big. They're just like try being like 300 or like morbidly obese. And I'm just like, I usually don't argue with them because I'm like, this is not going to go anywhere. Why am I going to argue with you? Like,
yeah,
you're the fat one.
Thing is,
no, I'm just kidding.
Unfortunately, oh my god, unfortunately, there is truth to that. Like, it is different. It's just, it is possible to get out, but it is like a pit. It's very different, and people don't want to accept that at all. And there are some that do get out just brutally. You know, there are some people. I do mention Obese to Beast. He's a good example online as somebody who just did the brutal work to get out of, you know, super morbid obesity in a traditional way. But that's not common. Yeah. Most people cannot do that. And it's not to say that, you know, Obese to Beast is so terrible for doing that or anything. No, like he got out. He's out of it. But most people can't. And so what I always argue for is I want to make it to where a lot more people can do it. Yeah. And if they do just don't care about themselves or just don't want to, then at least that's a choice they're making. And the thing is, most morbidly obese and super morbidly obese people do try to get out and they can't. Yeah. And you get a learned helplessness with the condition. Because as I say a lot, it's like, you know, we do live in a free society, and it's like, if you're hungry, you're going to eat. Yeah. Unless if you're locked in a dungeon or something. But you bet as soon as you were out of that dungeon, you would eat. Yeah. You're so, looking for some food and just... Or you're going to be ravenous and starving, and you would just put the weight back on. So it's like, that's not the way. Yeah. Which is what I did. I locked myself in a dungeon. Sure. I mean, you experienced that. But so you know it's true, which... I think it's very cringy to me. I do think there is a lot of envy or jealousy when people respond in those ways. Like, oh, you were never that big, or I don't think you could ever be, or you don't look like you were ever that fat, or whatever. Like, almost like they're not believing you because they would rather believe that it's impossible, which is crazy. But the thing is, if you seek, you will find. There are tons of examples of people that have lost weight. Yeah. And kept it off. I mean, we're talking like, how many years have you kept it off?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, at this point, because like 19 is when I started, 21 is when I got the grip of it and started successfully losing and keeping it off. And I mean, you've known me since 21. Like, sure.
You weren't big when we met.
Yeah. So
you just you had a very average physique, but you weren't big. Whereas now he's more in shape.
I mean, like, I just had that one moment, but that wasn't anything bad. It's when I had my, little Jessica Simpson moment. Like, ballooned up over the holidays, but I was going wild. Remember hometown?
Yeah.
Like,
I was too, but
yeah.
when you talk about that.
I had my moment, but it wasn't anything severe, and I wasn't like punishing myself, like fasting with water only or whatever. Yeah. So I, had my moment. But yeah, since 21, so that's 8 years because I'm 29 now. Mm-hmm. So it's 8 years that I've kept it off, and it's just mm-hmm. I'm trying to find a way to put it into words, but it's just like I just have a grip of it now. Like food, I guess, is no longer like I'm no longer like ravenous, and it's no longer like extreme guilty pleasure for me where I'm just like, oh, this tastes so good. Like, of course I love the taste of like cheesecake or something, but it's not like I need it or like, oh my God, like I can't control myself. It's just like I just don't need it. And like the payout for me is better being able to live my life and do what I want to do. Like come here to see you and like have the energy to function and just have a good time with you. You know what I mean? So it's like that to me is worth much more than like choosing to eat this food that I know is not great for me and like only harms me because I get the runs the next day when I eat that kind of food that like is not like good. I get the runs.
Yes, but there is some light there because even if you do that, it doesn't kill you. No. You're not like dead or like it's so horrible. Like if I would feel horrible. I'd probably start going mentally insane in a day. It's like, so it's tough when you're there because you do have to be strict and people don't want to hear that. Mm-hmm. People that are smo and mo, as they call it, they want to be told that it doesn't matter if you're strict. And it's like, no, like you need to reduce these oils. Absolutely. Like it will affect your mental health very soon, within days, if you go back. And that mental aspect, your appetite, all these things start shifting. Like I'm becoming more like you because I've gone 2 years really without it. Now I feel the same way where it's like, I don't really want that, or I don't care. Like my appetite is so much lower than it used to be that it's like, I just am like, whatever. Yeah. And I don't have these mental things that I used to. I don't trip about literally everything anymore. I just am kind of like, whatever, which is more normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not everything is like an affront to me or this horrible thing or, oh, this person's looking at me wrong or, oh, they said something to me. Like I'm online, for goodness sakes. I get hate comments hella. And I had a wild 2022 where I got a lot of hate because I was being crazy online. But it's like
a lot of scrutiny.
I have Taylor. She's got her good lyrics. I've been under scrutiny for sure in this hypo haze of mine. But no, I was really like I could still take it.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't so like I'm very emotional. I still am, but I'm not as sensitive. And it's like I just don't care about things, and it's helped my personal relationships so much and stuff. So it's like it's a huge thing, but I'm really happy to hear that, obviously you're very solid. You're not going back. No. It's done.
I did my time.
Yeah. You're not going back. And you are living proof that these people are wrong, period. And I will say it has been good to have you in my life because I have seen that, because I wasn't somebody that was dumb enough to be like, well, you weren't that.
Right. They're just like, you get out of here.
I'm like, no, you did get out. And let me see what, it is possible. And so it's like, there was still something, and there's a lot of people that are that, or that show that. And even if it was easier, though still difficult, because you were not morbid, it's still possible. And for most people, they're not morbidly obese. People say, oh, everybody is, and it's not true.
Yeah.
Most people are not. Most people are obese in America. Like it's more like what you were. It's people who are like 240 at 6 feet tall, right? That's common, I think, unfortunately. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
But we as a society have to decide, are we going to have everybody go into mow and smo, or are we going to turn the ship around, which is what I'm trying to do and what we all should try to do, because we're going to be in hella trouble if we don't.
Right. And when I talk to these people, like, I'm never talking to them in a negative way. I'm like telling them, I'm like, look, I've been on both ends of not eating and like overeating, and they both suck. Like, you know, I'm like, one is not better than the other. I'm like, they both suck. I'm like, one is having no energy and just being moody all the time. One is having energy and be like, but I can't do anything, you know, because I get tired. So I'm just like, they both suck. And like, I tell them, I'm like, look, like, you know, when they try to rag on me for being like, well, you never gone to 300. I'm like, okay, because I had my moment sooner than you. Like, I'm not going to apologize for that, you know?
Right, which I do. How do you, like, what do you feel like when or like, what does fat acceptance rhetoric mean to you? Or what do you think of when you hear something like people only lose weight for social acceptance, for example? What does that make you think of? Because some of it is true in your case, but then it also isn't. So what do you think when people say that?
Well, when I think of that, when they like, when the body positivity movement says stuff like that, I'm just like, okay, like, so do you just mean like you'll get like promotions and advance easier in life, or life is just so much better for you? Because I'm like, because let me tell you, it's not that much easier for me. Like, you know, like, sure, there's certain things that are maybe like better, but there's also certain things I don't want. Like, there's some kinds of attention that I don't look for and I don't want, and people like kind of bug me a little more. You know what I mean? I'm like, if you want to be bothered more, maybe, like, yeah.
It's all the things that teenage Alex was like, no, don't ever lose it, Alex, because they're going to come after you.
I mean, and it's...
But it's still worth it, right? It's still worth being thinner, right?
Or I mean, it is, healthier. But just because, like, I wouldn't say, like, you know, life is easier due to the way people treat me. Life is easier because I can navigate through it easier, you know? That's what makes it easier, that I can like move around better and like do things better. And like, you know, like you said, like you were super emotional and you would trip out more when you were in your hypo haze. Like,
still am kind of, but it's less, it's a little bit clearer. I'm the haze.
I was never that like emotional like that, but like I would still like get angry and like things would like upset me, and I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna figure out a way to fuck with you, you know? So that was my way of being, I guess, emotional or reactive or whatever. It's like, I'm gonna get you back in some kind of way. Like, you will trust, you will be dealt with, you know? Like, but
it can waste time, I guess, for sure.
No, it does. And I saw that as I got older. I'm like, oh, you said this about me? Like, I've gone 28 years without knowing you. Does it matter? What does it matter what you say, you know? Like, bye. So,
right, which some of that is just growing up, I guess, but
right. Yeah. And like you said, like the online comments, like I may not get harassed in the way you do, but I've told you some of the comments I get online and they're really gross, you guys. Like, you know, like they're really gross. And I'm just like, ooh, let's not answer to that, or I'll just do like a laughing face. I don't know how to respond.
Yeah, which that's the thing too. I don't think a lot of fat acceptance, they don't understand what it is for people to, I want to say, almost like be attracted to you only for your size, you know, or kind of just view you as an object, which happens a lot more to thin people, I would think.
It does, because simply put, on my Instagram, like, you know, like it doesn't truly bother me, but I can see it, or I'm like, oh, okay, like, because I post, you know, like my pictures of myself, and then I post lyrics, and I'm like, oh, I see the lyrics getting like 22 likes or something like that, and then like my pictures are out here getting like, I think my most recent one's like at 200 something, and I'm like, oh, I see. Right. You know, so I'm just like, it's okay at the end of the day. Like, you know, it's not about the likes, but it does show me like, oh, I see what you're paying attention to more. And even like on Facebook, when people talk to me, like, you know, like the about me in my profile, certain things, like, again, the party, it says right there, like conservative, you know, and people are like, oh my God, you're so hot. You're so amazing. You're so blah, blah, blah. But it's because they're not reading that. As soon as they read that, they're like, maybe you should go yourself, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
And I'm just like, okay, like, awesome, love and light, you know? So it's
always, but well, yeah, it's very quite literally skin deep, you know? And so it's kind of like, I don't think a lot of the fat acceptance people understand what that really means, what it means to have people supporting you for skin deep reasons. Like, I know, you know, I don't think I'm like horrifically ugly or anything. I've been called that before, but I'm like, girl, bye. It was by somebody who was. So fire. Anyway. Anyway. Moody,
I'm here for it.
Okay. He enjoys my toxicity too much.
Do.
But anyways, point is, I don't really believe that. So, but I mean, people have said it to me for sure. But
yeah.
I almost forgot where I was going with that. But anyway, the point is, I don't. Most people that are on my channel, they're not here for that.
Yeah.
You know, or it's not just like skin deep. It's like, no, like it's real things. Like, we're trying to make a change here. We're trying to turn the ship around. Like, I see this as a huge issue in society that if we do not fix, we will be in huge trouble.
Yeah.
And I thank you for being a part of that, you know, because people need to see it absolutely is possible. Yeah. Don't listen to these people. Otherwise, Eric would not exist. And although there are some truths to what they'd say, like when it comes to the ED situations or balance and stuff, the real truth here is there is not very strong guidance on this issue. And many people are on their own and they stumble. And it's, you know, the way it is right now, the only people that make it are people that are like extremely ambitious and like really crazy and just will never let it go. And to me, it's like, I want it to be easier to where most people can do it.
Yeah.
And that's not the way that our system currently is. It's very much you're on your own, and only somebody who like is willing to have failure after failure and they do all this. It's like, gosh, you know, like when I talked with Lisa on here, we were both like, if we would have just known or had treatment or just actual guidance, we would have been done with this like at 20 years old. It would have been like forever ago. But instead it goes on for like 10, 15, and for some like 20, 30 years. It's like, it doesn't need to do that. And so that's what we're doing here.
No, and I totally agree with that, because like, I don't ever try to tell people like, just do better or do what I did, because not everyone can do what I did, where I made so many mistakes and was on both ends and jumping around, you know what I mean? Working out for 5 hours. Like, nope.
Yeah.
I don't expect people to do all that. I did it because, again, like you said, I'm one of those people where it's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to find a way and a result. Yeah. But like, I'm able to also like ignore some feelings that I have. I'm like, shh.
Oh no.
They get in the way of the goal. Shh.
Oh my God.
But like, you know, it's through that insanity and like determination or whatever you want to call it that I managed to like get to the other side and be like, oh, I can do this. And like, you know, I wasn't like, well, I guess I was in a sense alone, because even some of my friends around me, like it just, for whatever reason, like it upset them. Like me drinking like, you know, a drunk was not a problem. But when I started eating healthier and wanting to better myself, they're like, why? They're like, oh my God, we're at a restaurant and you're eating like a steak with just eggs and like greens, like ew, you know?
Yeah, which I never did that to him. That's probably why we got closer, because I didn't do that. Because I got it. Like I understood. But yeah, you're right. Like I remember him telling me that, oh, this person's saying this about it and this person's saying that. And I would always be like, I'm not going to say anything. Like, I get it.
And they would get bothered. And I'm like, why does it matter to you? I'm like, why don't you just worry about your plate and not worry about mine? Like, you're not eating my food, as bland and boring as it seems. And, you know, I would lose, like when I did like, you know, like trim down here and there, like, because when I got to certain points, it wasn't like I needed to lose 20 pounds or whatever. It's like, oh, I just want to, you know, like slim down just a little more, like muscle up a little more. Mm-hmm. And they would just be like, oh my God, like you're looking so much better. Like, let's go celebrate with like a buffet. And I was just like, I don't think so.
Yeah, like, logic isn't quite there.
And then there's a lot of people too, even to this day, they're like, why do you work out so much? Or why do you always watch what you eat? Like, you're already like in shape, or you look good, like relax. And I'm like, but that's not how it works. Like, I can't just relax. And like there's something wrong with eating, you know, realistically like sugar, or if I want to have like some fruit or something that's not going to kill me, I'm not going to turn into like Squidward. And, you know, like
it doesn't happen overnight. No.
Right, but like some
if you eat like a hog every day for like a year, then yes, it would absolutely happen.
Oh, absolutely. But like, I definitely don't see myself going back. No, because I've done it, and like I told you, I've been on both ends, and I don't like both ends. Like, again, it was never extreme, but 240 was my extreme. That was enough for me
Mhm.
to see, you know? And like I
It's
said,
horrible.
I might get shit on a lot because it wasn't extreme enough for the bigger people, but I'm like, that was my extreme. And like,
Right.
you know, that was my path or whatever. I just had my moment sooner. Sucks for you guys. It really does, you know, because like you said, it's probably a pit. And I don't know that feeling, nor will I ever, hopefully.
No, yeah.
But like,
Yeah. Probably
you know,
not. Usually people get to this level for severe reasons, whether it's severe health issues or severe psychological issues. That's
Mhm.
honestly the truth. And people don't want to say that or admit it, but I will because I don't care. I'm crazy in that way. I don't care. Like, I'm like, we need to get real. Like, this has to change. Like, I don't care
yeah.
about, you know, what people want to hear. I just don't. It's like, no, like, this is what needs to be said because this has to end.
Well, it does, and I agree because two of my close friends that you know very well too are very hypo, more than likely, you know.
Yeah, and they act like it
And I'm
too.
just like, oh, that's not good, but I don't know what it is. But obviously, like when I tell them, like maybe we should like change some things or just let's not do that so much, and they're like, "Ugh," like,
Mhm.
and they're not for it, and I'm like, oh, it sucks, obviously, because they're like close friends, and I'm like, well, I don't
Mhm.
want you to go down this path because they're both 29, you know.
Yeah, it gets worse. Like, if you don't pivot at all, it gets a lot worse. And I think too, you know, I've heard some tea
Of
around,
the habits.
but it's like with the things that they do, there's a lot of like alcohol, there's a lot of MJ, there's a lot of eating a lot of fried foods, there's a lot of
Mhm.
not sleeping, there's a lot
Mhm.
of not exercising at all.
They're like making a whole
Yeah.
cocktail of everything bad, and they're just like, I want it all the bad
Yeah.
things, and I'm just like, oh my god, you guys, like, like,
And you can, and it is rooted not just physically with, you know, they're getting bigger, but it's also mentally. You can see the decline. You can see them acting crazier, and it's not good, you know, and it happened to me. And so I don't judge as much because I understand it, but it's like, it's going on, you
yeah,
guys. It's happening in society.
it
Like,
is.
people are going through this on a
Yeah.
mental level too. And it's actually more important than even how you look. It's
Mhm.
just being able to relate to people or being able to have peace in your life. Like, I could not have peace. I never could. Now I do.
Well, that's the thing, like you said, I think like the fat acceptance movement, they get stuck on the skin deep where it's like, well, you look
Mhm.
better, you're skinny, so people treat you better. And I'm like, that's not
Mhm.
true. First of all, I mean, they're nicer. They're not kind. They're nicer,
Yeah.
but they usually have a motive or something, you know? But also, I'm just like, okay, like you're stuck on the skin deep, but it's like, it's about your health too, because it's like, I'm not that reactive, as you know. And like, I don't really fight
Mhm.
with people. I'm like, well, you're not worth my time. I don't know you, whatever.
Right.
But I'm like, to me, I'm like, it's kind of nasty when you want to like, not like, I don't need validation, but when you say like, oh, 240 only, don't talk to me. I'm like, that's not a pleasant attitude. I'm like, that's kind of gross. I'm like, and if you're doing this to me, someone who's not tripping out or doesn't care, how do you treat other people? Like, are you nasty towards other people too? Or you just kind of look down on them? Like, you know, it affects your personality, like you said, your way of thinking and
Mhm.
all that. And I'm like, if people are treating you bad, I'm like, it's most likely because you're being nasty. So,
Right. Which
and
that's a huge part of it, which I will admit to, but
mhm,
also too, like, you just, it's hard to explain, but when you're so severely hypo, it's kind of like you're just lame. You're really a lame person. Like, how you think, it's very loserish. I don't know how else to say it, but it's like something happens and you're just like, oh my gosh, da, 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 and you're like very easily distracted.
yeah,
It's very easy to, you think you should just cut everybody off. Like, it's very, very horrible. And you end up like I did in 2020, very alone and completely isolated. And it's just not good. And I've seen it with other people. Like, I see those kind of things where they will just split from people, or they'll write somebody off, or if there's something about somebody, they're like, they're not good enough for me now. It is weird how it makes people feel that way. I think it's some kind of a survival mechanism that is being misappropriated.
and it's so crazy because it's like it can be over something like something like, and not even like your political party, but like just a certain issue where it's like, oh, we disagree, like unfriend, block, like can't talk to you anymore. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, were we friends in the first place then? If you're gonna do that to me so easily, because
it can be similar in religious circles. You can literally have the same faith or lack thereof. But if you have a difference in opinion on something, friendships can end over it because people cannot handle it. And also too, like people, it does, the best way I can describe it is it makes you split. It's like when you're very hypo, you see things in such a black and white way. And since I've gotten better, I live in a world of gray now. It's so different. Even how I view diet. When I was keto and all this stuff, like it was like black and white. Like I am eating healthy or I'm eating horrible. There's no in between. And it wasn't just keto. It was like every diet I did. It was like I have to be perfect or I have to be not perfect at all and to hell and whatever. Like I'm just going ham and whatever. It's like, and it's not balanced. And it's like, no, like as I've gotten better, the way I view things, it's so much more gray. And I don't view things in terms of like, this person is always bad, or this person is always good, or this person is always this or always that. It's like I've told you guys many times, which I had to tell because I did a video where I attacked Taylor Swift because I basically said she was fat phobic, which I do think she is, absolutely. But I still do. but the thing is like people couldn't get that I still like her. Because in people's minds in today's culture, if I say that she is fat phobic, I cannot like her and I must hate her guts. Because she is fat, because there's something wrong with her. Which to me, it's like, it is what it is. Like nobody's perfect. And it's ridiculous. Like I cannot imagine just never listening to her music or never enjoying what she does because of something about her like that that has nothing to do with me even. And it's like I would lose a lot of enjoyment in my life. So people don't think of things in that way, but it's part of the mindset. And I think people don't realize how common it is becoming. It has definitely gotten worse over the past 10 years. But anyways, so with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But thank you guys so much. Is there anything else you want to say to the fat acceptance crowd before we go?
I do. I just want to say that, first of all, it's possible, even though I may not understand how difficult it is. Like, it is possible. And like, I just wish that they would like open up their mind to just listen to reason, because what they're doing, it's like they're just digging themselves into a deeper hole and a faster death. And it's just like, it's not worth it. Like, you know, and it's so much more than skin deep, you guys. Like, it goes further. Like, it's not all about looks, like trust. Like, again, I learned that in high school, like, you know, but again, I did too much. But it's just not just looks. It's just, it's not worth it. I promise you. Life, like, it's easier to navigate in the end because of your health. It's not easier or better for you. Because you get like all these privileges. Like, shoot, or I'm still waiting on my privileges. I don't know. Like, I'm waiting on the privileges. Maybe like, maybe they're coming. But in all seriousness, no, just don't give up. And like, you know, love your health, value your health. Like, don't, because to me, fat acceptance is like giving up. And it's like, I'm just gonna stay like this forever. And
it is.
That's not true.
It absolutely
It's not true. You're not gonna stay like that forever, you guys.
That's a really good way of putting it. It is absolutely giving up. But thank you so much for doing this.
Well,
doing
thank you
your
for
part.
having me. I appreciate
no, I'm
it.
just kidding. He's super into K-pop. He kind of got me into it a little bit. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like, subscribe, do all the things that everybody says. Be sure to enjoy my hair turning into a bob over time.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you guys later. I'll talk to you guys later. So have a good night, y'all. Bye.
Period.
Fact.